Alright everyone, how are we doing? This is Matt here on the Vinyl Head UK channel. And it's that time of week again. We're going to dive into some download festival memories. We've done 04, we've done 05, we've done 06, we've done 07, we've done 08, we've done 09. 2010 is where we land for this week. A really great weekend. 3 stunning main stage headliners. 3 bands that I'd never seen live. 3 bands I didn't know if I'd ever see live. But there they were. So, we carried on from 09. We were in the newish location. We're in our second year of being in what is now our current location over at Donington Racetrack. The weather, I always kind of forget to mention about the weather, but the weather for the Friday and the Saturday, it was good. You know, we had the sun, we had good weather again. Sunday, not so good. This was my at least, I think 03 was pretty nice weather. This was our first taste of real heavy rain at Download at Donington. And this trend would carry on for a few years after this. We got some rainy, wet downloads following this. But yeah, the Sunday wasn't too good weather-wise. It didn't stop us though. We still had fun. Who cares about a bit of rain, a bit of mud? It's rock and roll, as I always say. So, I'll say what I always say and get it out of the way. This is me trying to remember what I can out of here for this download, as per normal. And as per normal, I have a list of the lineup next to me, just so I make sure I can remember all the bands. I don't want to forget anyone. I don't want to get the wrong year. But I haven't looked into anything. I just want to try and remember what I can, so I won't be talking about some random band on the third stage that you might have seen, but I didn't, because I didn't see them, so I don't remember them. It's as simple as that. All right. So, should we start? Should we have a look? Main stage, our headliners. As I say, 3 amazing bands. 3 bands that I'm a big fan of. And bands that definitely one of them, maybe 2 of them, maybe 3 of them, I didn't even think I would ever see live. And there we were, watching them. 2 of them I've only ever seen once, and that was that weekend. The third one I've gone on to see a few more times. They've come back to play Download in recent years. But kicking Friday off on our main stage headliners was none other than AC/DC. And you want to know something? They brought their own stage. Their own stage. You had the main stage, and then next to it, you had the AC/DC stage. So if you guys have ever seen the European festivals like Wacken or Hellfest, they have 2 main stages next to each other. The way they do it, so a band will play, and the road crew will set up the next band. There's a very small changeover, 5-10 minutes, and then that next band is on, and it carries on like that. You can get more bands on in a day, you know, at Download, especially between sub-headliner and main. We can have like a 45-minute wait. We could fill some time up with some music, you know. The Europeans have got it right. But for that year, as I say, we had our main stage, we had our AC/DC stage. AC/DC were the only band to play on it. No other bands played on that stage, just their stage. So after the Friday, it kind of sat there, not doing anything, gathering dust. But AC/DC were Friday. Saturday main stage headliners. They'd reformed, they were back. It was Rage Against the Machine. And then on Sunday, we had Aerosmith. As I say, Aerosmith, we've had back at Download. They've come back to headline since. But we had our first taste at Download of the mighty Aerosmith. So, across the weekend, let's talk about our stages and who headlined across the board, as we always look at. So, we had 5 stages on the most part. We're going to say 6 for Friday because we had AC/DC stage. But we had ourselves 5 stages across the weekend. So our main stage, our actual main stage, was called for this year the Maurice Jones main stage. Maurice Jones had died, I think, the previous year. He was one of the co-founders of the original Monsters of Rock. So obviously he was being honoured by having the main stage named after him. Our second stage was also named after someone in tribute. This was the Ronnie James Dio stage. We'd lost Dio very sadly to cancer sometime before. I know I was due to see Heaven and Hell down in London with Dio. That had to be, well, it didn't get cancelled. They played, I think this was after Dio had passed away. They played, but they had a couple of guest vocalists. But yes, the second stage, had it not been for Maurice Jones dying, I think the Ronnie James Dio stage would have been the main stage. But it was our second stage. Third stage was the Pepsi Max stage. The fourth stage was the Red Bull Bedroom Jam stage. It's back. You remember last year we had it, it's back again. And then we had our Jägermeister acoustic stage. So just a small stage set up for just bands to come and do acoustic sets on. A couple of those bands had already played during the weekend and they were doing an unplugged set just on that acoustic stage. For the purpose of this video, it will be main stage, second, third, fourth, acoustic, maybe fifth, who knows. Let's see what happens when we get there. So yeah, looking across the board, obviously we had a lot of headliners because there was a lot of stages. So Friday, as I say, AC/DC stage, obviously we had AC/DC. Kind of, they were classed, I guess, as main stage headliners, although not technically headliners. But on the Friday, we had Them Crooked Vultures. The second stage headlining, so they've worked their way up. I've talked about them in previous episodes. Bullet for My Valentine were headlining second. Third stage were Job for a Cowboy. Fourth stage was Devil Sold His Soul. And then headlining the acoustic stage was Skin. Jumping on to the Saturday, main stage, obviously nothing's happening on the AC/DC stage now. Main stage, Rage Against the Machine. On the second stage, after playing a couple of, I think maybe one at the time, main stage slot, we had 30 Seconds to Mars. Michael Monroe was third stage headliner. Breed 77 on the fourth stage, and then that acoustic stage was Reckless Love. And then on Sunday, in the rain, we had Aerosmith on main stage. Second stage was Stone Sour. Again, a band that had done some main stage, sort of 3-4 down, bumped up onto second stage headliners. Third stage, Suicidal Tendencies. Fourth stage was Panic Cell. And then Ginger Wildheart was back playing the acoustic stage, headlining that on the Sunday. Has a lot of headliners across the board there, all right? We'll go through our lineup as we always do and try to remember as much as I can. Forgive me if I don't remember everything. You know, it's still 11 years ago, so it was a while ago. But should we start? Should we do it? Let's dive in. So, we start obviously with Friday, the 11th of June, back when the weather was sunny and nice. Kicking off the main stage was a band called Unearth, who kind of graced us at the time of the new wave of American heavy metal. So they were kind of lumped in with the bands like Lamb of God, Killswitch Engage, Trivium, Hatebreed to a degree, bands like that. I don't think Unearth ever quite made it as big as some of those other bands like Killswitch, for example, or Trivium. Lamb of God was another one. But they were doing okay for themselves. I don't really remember what they played during this set. I was not really an Earth fan compared to like Killswitch, Lamb of God, Trivium, bands like that. I never massively got into them. I saw them on a couple of support slots. I remember seeing them supporting Hatebreed at one show, and I believe I saw them a couple of other times supporting on a few gigs as well. But here they were kicking off Maine. What I do remember is they really got circle pits. I think it's a tough spot at times to open up Maine. Some bands, you know, I've talked before about Trivium back in 05. But it's a tough slot. You don't get many people. But I think the advantage, if you're going to open up one of the days on main stage, Friday is the day to do it. Because the fans have been there a couple of days already. They're hungry for live music, you know. And if you've got a band with the energy, you know, the heaviness, I think the fans, are going to lap it up. And I think they did just that for Unearth. There was some big circle pits going. I have to say that this day, compared to other Fridays, there was a lot less bands. There was only 5 bands on Maine, including AC/DC on their stage. So a lot less. I think that had something to do with AC/DC's length of set, maybe. If we look historically at Fridays, yes, it starts a couple of hours later than a Saturday and Sunday, but it still has, you know, 7 or 8 bands maybe. We only had 5 on this. So we were getting longer set lists, at least, from these bands. So I imagine I don't remember the set time off the top of my head, but I imagine it would have been more than the usual sort of half an hour that the opening bands get on Maine. 36 Crazy Fists were on after, a band that had played quite a few times already, if I'm honest, at Download. This was a normal, I've said about it before, sometimes sets kind of blend in a little bit. 36 Crazy Fist sets blend in a little bit to each other for me, mainly because they play usually the same bunch of songs, plus a couple of songs thrown in from new records, whatever. They did bring out Howard Jones from Killswitch, and they did Elysium, I think it was, together, which was quite cool, you know. It's something I don't think we see quite as much, but back in the early days of Download, we definitely saw a lot of guest musicians coming out and doing stuff with other bands. We got a couple across this weekend, especially on the Sunday, but it's not something I don't think we really see anymore. It was always quite exciting. You'd go and you'd sort of look at who was playing on the same day and think, oh, cool, maybe he will go out with them, or they will come out with them, or, you know, anything like that. But we did. We got Howard Jones out. Typical 36 Crazy Fists set, you know, all the usual stuff that you'd expect to hear. We did. Again, a longer set. And then, of course, I just mentioned about them, Killswitch Engage. Now, I said in the last video, back for 09, that I thought that was Howard's last download with Killswitch. But I was wrong, excuse me. I got my facts wrong on that one. Howard's last download show was this one in 2010. Again, it's kind of merged into some of the other Killswitch shows with Howard at festivals, because, you know, they're playing what you'd expect, I always say, about festival sets. So Rose of Sharon, Fixation on the Darkness, My Curse, A Bid Farewell, tracks like that. You know, Adam D was wearing his cape. You know, it kind of just blends in a little bit back then, which set was which, just because they were quite similar. But then something very different. So we'd had the sort of, I guess you could throw in 36 Crazy Fists into this field, but we'd had sort of a new wave of American heavy metal bands. But then we had something very different, which was kind of, I think, a nice step into AC/DC. And we had the one and only appearance by very much a supergroup, which was Them Crooked Vultures, closing out the main stage. Not, I don't think, as main stage headliners as such, but the last band to be playing on our typical main stage. This, of course, was, as I say, a supergroup. So we had Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age, John Paul Jones on bass from Led Zeppelin, and Dave Grohl on drums from the Foo Fighters and Nirvana, of course. Our one and only, as far as I'm aware, our one and only appearance from Dave Grohl at Donington, at Download. I mentioned about festival headliners. Obviously, the Foo Fighters are a band that we've never had headline at Donington, at Download. Definitely a band that could. I feel that they are more inclined to be doing Reading and Leeds and Glastonbury and festivals like that, rather than coming to do Download. I'm not sure why, because I think that, you know, the crowd is right at Download. It's not a heavy metal festival. As much as some people say it is, it's very much not. You only have to look at our main stage headliners to see it's not a heavy metal festival as such. So yes, I think the crowd would just be fine for Foo Fighters. So it's interesting why they've never played. I imagine that Andy Coppin and the guys responsible for Download have tried, maybe. There are stories of other bands that they've tried for and never have succeeded. Van Halen is one that I think they actually had booked, maybe, or at least were trying. Pearl Jam was another one that they were after and maybe booked again and end up not playing. I've never heard any stories of Foo Fighters, if they've gone after the Foo Fighters or not. It is an interesting one. I think that side of it is very interesting. It interests me, the booking and everything that goes into bringing bands into the festival. But digressing, we had Dave Grohl, at least for them Crooked Vultures. They've only done one album. The album was 13 tracks long, of which we got 10 of them that day at Download. It was very cool to see these three guys playing together. It was very, very cool to see John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin playing in the flesh in front of me. He's the only member of Led Zeppelin, I guess not counting Jason Bonham, who's obviously filled in for his dad when Zeppelin had played. Seen him with Black Country Communion. But it's the only time I've seen one of the original members of Zeppelin play. I saw Robert Plant walk across a stage once. That's as close as I've ever seen Robert Plant do anything on the stage. He walked in front of us across the stage. That was it. But there he was, John Paul Jones. This set felt like a jam to a degree. It felt like there were a lot of passages within these songs to stretch out into jams. It sounded like three very accomplished musicians having an amazing jam. It wasn't sort of the jam you would expect your local band in their garage to be doing, where it's just a bit all over the place. This was a high quality jam, as I say, from three very talented, influential musicians. And it was a cool moment. We didn't go too far. It's a shame. I would have liked to have ventured a little bit further down and been a bit closer to this. But a lot of people had the same idea. They kind of wanted to watch them Crooked Vultures sort of from the back to the side and then go down and get a good spot for AC/DC. It's, I guess, the problem with having the two main stages as they were. So we hung back a little bit. We watched from a distance, and then sort of last song or just after they finished, switched across onto the other stage, as everybody else seemed to want to do at the same time. But it was a good set. As I say, it's very jammy, so nothing hugely stands out memory-wise, like pivotal moments in the set or songs in the set. Anyone who was expecting covers would have been very disappointed. I don't think them Crooked Vultures were ever a band that was going to steal from back catalogues of Zeppelin or Foos or Queens of the Stone Age or even Nirvana. But it was a cool moment to see these guys. It was a cool moment to see Dave Grohl back behind the drums. It was very cool to see John Paul Jones. I'm a big fan of Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age. I think he's a very, very cool guy. So it was the Ginger Elvis is pretty cool to see him we had Queens of the Stone Age coming back a couple of years later to play. So he obviously enjoyed his time, enjoyed it more than Dave Grohl maybe. Who knows? But let's switch over onto that other stage. AC/DC playing Donington again. Anyone who's seen, was it 90 or 91? One of those 2 years. That classic Donington show out on DVD, Blu-ray, whatever. You know, that moments like that is why Donington is so rich in history. Not just like all the Monsters of Rock stuff, but like shows like that. I imagine every guy or girl that played Download that weekend and probably years leading up to this Download, all the ones that have been previous, watched that Donington AC/DC show as a kid. And I'd be amazed if any one of these guys from the bands didn't. And I imagine it would have inspired a lot of people to be wanting to play in a band, pick up guitar, pick up the bass, sing, play the drums, whatever. Pivotal moment in rock history. You know, I always mention about that classic Donington location with the Dunlop tyre over in the distance to the side. And I always mention about the Paradise City video from Guns N' Roses. But this is just as monumental for the history of Donington is that AC/DC show back in 90 or 91. But there they were back. They were there in front of us at Donington. So they were on the Black Ice tour. So Rock and Roll Train they opened with. I think the thinking, or at least what I've read about having their own stage, is they really wanted to bring the full production that they were doing across stadiums and arenas. And I'm not sure if that would have worked on the usual main stage with other production and other bands and everything in between, which is why they brought their own stage. Of course, they had that huge train, a full steam train carriage there on stage, which was amazing, which of course Rosie came and rode upon during Whole Lot of Rosie. And you know, just for full production, which, you know, a band like AC/DC, you want the full production. They probably could get away with having no production and just the five of them standing playing on stage, but you want that full production. You want the full AC/DC works. And it was cool. This was obviously back, I know we've kind of got the, obviously, other than Malcolm, we've got, again, that classic lineup. But we did have Malcolm back then before he passed. You know, just incredible, like no other words. One of those bands I didn't know if I'd ever get to see live. You know, I'm so glad I did back then, especially with Malcolm, such a pivotal member of the band. And it was just, I have no other words. The only sort of, I've seen a lot of bands that I love at Download, and a lot of moments where you're like, wow, look, there, so-and-so is playing in front of me. That's incredible. There's been a couple of moments at Donington where I've had to stand and pinch myself. Two stand out, AC/DC in front of me, and the other one was a couple of years back with Guns N' Roses, back with Slash, Axl and Duff together. And that was I remember them playing Welcome to the Jungle, and I had to pinch myself and go, is this happening? But AC/DC was one of those moments. You know, Rock and Roll Train opening, but then we just go into every AC/DC song you probably want to hear. Dirty Deeds, Back in Black, Highway to Hell, You Shook Me All Night Long, Thunderstruck, TNT, Whole Lot of Rosie. You name a classic AC/DC song and they played it. We had the walkway as well that came. If you've ever seen AC/DC shows, you'll see that big walkway. We had that. We had Malcolm going up, not Malcolm, sorry. We had Angus going up on the platform in front of us. We weren't too far away from that. We were very close, and there was Axl, this is Guns N' Roses. I'll get my names right in a minute. Malcolm, Axel, I've called him Angus, we had on the platform going up in front of us. I can't remember which song it was, but soloing and all the confetti. And it was just such a cool experience, such an amazing rock and roll moment for me. I'm sure there's millions of people out there that have seen AC/DC already and know what it's about. But for me, getting to see them, it's the only time I've ever have seen AC/DC. And just wow. It was so cool. And, you know, some might argue it's very pompous of them to bring their own stage and very demanding and blah, blah, blah. But I'm so glad they did, to get that proper full production and full experience of a band. It was kind of like their own show. It was stepping away from the festival and going to their own show, having that stage to themselves. I loved every second of it. You can probably tell. And that was our Friday. As always, we're going to have a little look across the board and look at who else played. I've had my list in front of me. So as I say, across pretty much all the stages on the Friday, wasn't many bands. I think that all the bands had finished by the time AC/DC had played. I think that was part of their contract. Iron Maiden do the same sort of thing, have bands finish before Iron Maiden, or AC/DC in this case, come to the stage. But yeah, across the other stages, so second stage we had Trigger the Bloodshed, who I've spoke about before, one of those bands in the British extreme movement that was, you know, getting a lot of press and being spoke about. Anathema, we had A Day to Remember, who I've spoke about, have gone on to sub-headline main stage before. Coheed and Cambria, and then Bullet for My Valentine, who would work their way up. They'd done some quite high spots on main already, but there they were doing a headline slot over on second stage, which was, you know, good for the British metal scene, having a British band up there headlining that stage. Over on the third stage, we had Lawnmower Death, which was, you know, pretty cool to see those guys playing over on there. As I Lay Dying, another one of those bands in the new wave of American heavy metal, you know, tag them in with Unearth and everyone else that I've mentioned about. And then Job for a Cowboy, who, again, not British, but were making sort of waves in this new sort of extreme metal scene that was coming out. They were getting a lot of press and a lot of sort of good said about them. They've kind of disappeared a little bit off the radar since, but they were making quite a movement, which was good for extreme metal. It was, you know, I imagine a lot of the old school crowd of the death metal scene, extreme metal scene, probably weren't favouring these bands, but I think it was important as a gateway for younger fans who were listening to Trigger the Bloodshed or listening to Job for a Cowboy, and then going on to discover whether it be like the Florida death scene or the Gothenburg scene or any of the Scandinavian bands, whether that be in the black scene or the death scene, anything like that. I think it was an important gateway. So, you know, and as the kids got older, they were getting into these bands like Death or, you know, Cannibal Corpse, Vader, any of the European guys as well. Vader being European, but any of the other European bands as well. So I think quite an important thing at the time, whether you liked them or not. And then on the fourth stage, there's a name that stands out. So it seems that wherever Dave Grohl goes, Taylor Hawkins follows, because he actually was playing on the fourth stage in quite a low spot, which would have been a pretty cool moment to see Taylor Hawkins. This was Taylor Hawkins and the Coat Tail Riders, which was Taylor's, or is, I think, Taylor's solo band, which he fronts. He does have actually a very good voice. He does, he's done some Zeppelin live, he's done some Queen live. He does have a very good voice. And yeah, there he was on the fourth stage. So obviously he tagged along with Dave Grohl, probably checked out them Crooked Vultures a little bit later. He obviously wasn't that impressed with Donington either, because, you know, between them, we still haven't seen the Foo Fighters coming back. And then Devil Sold His Soul headlining. And then we had some acoustic sets. No one that really stands out. We had Skin headlining on the Friday. But no one that massively really stands out for me on that stage. So, jumping on to Saturday. There was a lot of good stuff across the board. Across all of the stages on this one. But we started Friday on Main looking at a band called Taking Dawn, who were making some waves as well. A band that I spoke about opening up Main in 08 were Black Tide, and Taking Dawn didn't sound similar, but same sort of essence. Were making waves. They were getting some decent support slots on the go. A band that kind of disappeared a little bit again. But we wanted to go and check them out, catch for buzz, you know, see if we've got anything good on our hands, and sort of I was there moment when they opened up Main, and now look where they are. But yeah, unfortunately, not really carried on that upward trajectory as such. Following these guys were Hell Yeah. They had their, I think, second album, I'm going to say, which was Stampede, which I think it either came out just before Download or just after. They did a couple of tracks off Stampede, if I remember right. Most of the set was obviously based off the first album. And again, as I've said, I think I said before, and I will definitely say since in later episodes of this, I don't know what was up with the sound guys who worked for Hell Yeah, but I would personally sack them because all it was just bass. I love Vinnie Paul. He was one of my inspirations as a drummer when I was young. It was very sad when we lost him. But listening to Pantera and hearing those grooves, and especially the double pedal from Vinnie Paul and how powerful he played, such an inspiration. So, you know, we were not anymore going to see Pantera. Never got to see Pantera, sadly. But a chance to see Vinnie Paul drum, I'm going to lap it up. But when I'm watching a set and literally all you can hear is his kick drums and the bass guitar just overpowering everything, it just ruins the experience. I don't want to just hear Vinnie Paul play his kick drum. I want to hear Vinnie Paul play everything. And the sound, for whatever reason, for Hell Yeah, was always just so bassy that I just lost interest. You know, a few songs into the set, I don't want to know because I can't really hear what's going on other than bass. And it's just too much. Yeah, I don't know. They just couldn't ever get it right. I never saw Hell Yeah in their own, like an indoor setting, supporting all their own gigs. So I imagine it would have been a lot better. But yeah, they just could never get it right with the sound, and it's such a shame, real shame. Following Hell Yeah were Atreyu. I never got into Atreyu. I wasn't bothered about seeing Atreyu, so didn't. As simple as that. Not going to see everyone. I'm not going to be into everyone. Some bands that I'm not really into that much, I will check out. You know, you never know. You might hear a band and think, well, actually, they're good. They're really good. Atreyu, not for me, unfortunately. Never did it. After Atreyu were Flyleaf. Now, I quite liked Flyleaf. I forget, is it Lacey, her name? The original vocalist? I might be wrong. Comment if I'm right or wrong. I don't know. But she was still in the band at this point. And there was a few songs, mainly the known songs of Flyleaf that I enjoyed. So Cassie, Fully Alive, I think it was I'm So Sick. The ones that most people would know. I like those tunes, so it was quite cool seeing them. I liked her voice. She only little, but she had quite a lot of stage presence. And I enjoyed it. It's not really a band that I'd probably go out my way to go and see live at their own show. But at a festival setting, yeah, I'll go check them out. And it was fun. I think, obviously, she's left the band and she was replaced by another female singer who I actually think has left the band since. So I don't really know who's singing for Flyleaf these days. Haven't really heard much from them in a long time, so I don't even know if they're still going. But they were very much going that day, and yeah, I enjoyed them. It was a good set. It was a nice, you know, hung back a little bit. Didn't need to go down the front. Had no need to. Just hang back, have a beer, check this out, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. It reminded me a bit of when I've talked about Billy Talent. You know, I know some of the songs, the main songs, and they're a fun band to check out at a festival. It doesn't always have to be your favourite bands or intense going down the front, anything like that. You can just chill out and enjoy live music. I wish we could do that right now, to be honest. Following Flyleaf were Five Finger Death Punch. Five Finger had already played main stage at Download. I think they were the second band on the year before. And at this point, obviously, they significantly jumped a few spots and playing sort of, I think 4 or 5 down from headliner. So they had obviously in a year made quite some strides in their popularity. Now, the thing that stuck out most that I remember for this set, it was quite a funny, cool moment. I'm a sucker for those classic sort of rock moments, rock star, rock and roll moments. I think I've touched on this a little bit before. I think bands are kind of tame these days. I don't know why, but rock bands, metal bands, it's rock and roll. It should be edgy, I think. It should be edgy. And you know, it should always be sort of dangerous to steal a phrase from Guns N' Roses as such. But I think bands these days are tame. Now, some of these moments that I speak about were not quite the rock and roll moments from like the 80s or anything, you know, driving cars into swimming pools or anything that Ozzy ever did. But I want to see something that's kind of exciting. There was a moment on the Sunday I'll come on to which was a bit more rock and roll, but the singer from Five Finger wanted everyone to get on stage. So suddenly there was all these bodies crowd surfing and people just literally hopping over the barrier and sprinting towards the stage to get on. Security were having none of it. Absolutely none of it. They were tackling people down, grabbing people, escorting them away. I don't think a single person got on that stage. It wasn't like Iggy Pop did back in 2004, where he got a load of people on stage, or anything like Steel Panther does. It was just carnage. It was like a riot between the security and the fans. And the sound got shut off, which isn't the first time. It might not be the last time it happens, but the sound went off. Security quickly said that was it. The set was done because of a violation of health and safety. There was a lot of people trying to get on that stage, and it just looked like carnage with security just taking people out. Then they did the agreement that Five Finger could play one last song. I don't know how close they were to the end of the set anyway, or how many tracks that they had to cut off the set. But we had one last song. The vocalist is Ivan, apologised. He said, yeah, it's my mistake, shouldn't have done it. Don't apologise, be rock and roll. Don't apologise, you know, live a little. You're a rock star, act like one. That's what I think. But they did one more song. We didn't get anyone on stage. Oh well, that was that. After Five Finger, we had the Mighty Mighty Lamb of God, who were on the Raft tour, which was a great album. I think it's an album that kind of was a bit underrated. It doesn't really get spoke about all that much, but it was a pretty intense, in-your-face album. I really like it. I thought it was a great album. But yeah, we were on the Raft tour, so we got some of the tracks from Raft, which again, I'm more than happy with. And then all your usual Lamb of God stuff that you'd expect. Ruin, I think we got Walk With Me and How, Laid to Rest, Redneck, and Black Label. I've spoke about Black Label. Why don't they ever play Black Label anymore? What a song. What a way to end a set. Why, Lamb of God, do we not play Black Label anymore? I want to know. I want answers. Come on. But we got it that day. I think it's just such an amazing way to end a set. What a song. Just gets that crowd going. You'll see some insane pits during Black Label. But yeah, again, solid. You don't really go wrong with a Lamb of God set. You know what you're going to get from it. It's like seeing Slayer or seeing Motorhead. You know what you're going to get from a Lamb of God set. They're going to be all guns blazing. They're going to be informed. I don't think there's really bad Lamb of God shows, and not that any that I've seen or any that I know about or ever heard about, at least. Solid set. Ironically, we had Chris Adler at the time still. Ironically, the band that Chris Adler went on to drum for was following Lamb of God, and that, of course, was Megadeth. Now, Megadeth on this tour were doing the 20th anniversary of Rust in Peace. We didn't get, like, the full album played, so they opened up with a few tracks, and then mid-set they did, like, select tracks from Rust in Peace. So, Holy Wars, Hangar 18, Tornado of Souls, a couple of others, right in the middle of a set before coming out of that and going into playing sort of a few other typical Megadeth tracks. But it was a cool moment. I think maybe we could have dropped the first few tracks of the set and just had a full Rust in Peace set. There was a band on the Sunday who played a full album and then a couple of tracks after. It would have been cool to have seen that. So have Megadeth come on and just do Rust in Peace and then close out with a couple of other select tracks from other albums. I think that would have been more fitting. But we didn't. We just got select tracks, which were cool. You know, we got some deep cuts off Rust in Peace, which you may not have seen live otherwise. Set was an hour or so, so, you know, never mind. It's something I think I would have preferred. I think a few people would have preferred, especially considering that tour was celebrating 20th anniversary of that record. But never mind. It's still solid. I'm very much looking forward to seeing Megadeth next year. They've got a second stage headliner slot, I think on the Friday, so they're up against Kiss. So I know where I'll be. It won't be Kiss. Upsetting the Kiss army again. I should stop doing it. I'm sorry. And that was Megadeth. And then we had a band that had kind of made this sub-headliner slot their own. A bit like Korn. A band that seemed to only ever play main stage sub-headliner slot. And that was Deftones. Who had come back once again. They were on an album tour. This was Diamond Eyes. They played quite a few from Diamond Eyes. They had quite a long set. Like a real, probably hour and a quarter. A real good lengthy set for Deftones. They opened with, I think they opened with Rocket Skates, which is my favourite track off that record anyway. So it's like, wow, we've peaked already. There's some great Deftones tracks, don't get me wrong. 7 Words. I mean, they close with 7 Words, which is another one of my favourite Deftones tracks. So, but I really like that record. Command Control, tracks like that we got. It was quite a heavy set on Diamond Eyes tracks. Passenger we got. Still no Maynard. He obviously wasn't present on site compared to 06, where we, you know, could have got him. But again, just a solid set. You know what you're going to get from Deftones. They're not everyone's cup of tea, I understand that, but they are incredibly popular. And again, a band that's going to be present in 22, sorry. Again, another main stage sub-headliner slot. I believe that will be to Maiden, or I might be wrong. We've still got to wait to see what splits are like for download next year. But again, you know what you're going to get from a Deftones show. Sets can be a little bit here and there sometimes on a Deftones show, but I was really happy with this set. As I say, it was heavy on Diamond Eyes. I really like that record. I like a lot of tracks off that record. There's not many I don't like, so I was pretty happy that we got a Diamond Eyes heavy set. Plus, you know, My Own Shover, Summer, Passenger, 7 Words, everything else that I probably want to hear thrown in as well. And then On to our main stage headliner. This is a band who I definitely thought I would never ever get to see live, and that is none other than the mighty Rage Against the Machine, who had reformed. They were back playing at Download. They've reformed in the last couple of years. They haven't been able to tour because of COVID. I half expected to see them announced for next year. I have a suspicion maybe the year after we're going to get the return of Rage Against the Machine at Donington. I hope so. I really, really hope so. Okay, let me level with you. I said about 2 pinch yourself moments, AC/DC and then Guns N' Roses with Axl, Slash and Duff. This was probably another pinch yourself moment, if I'm honest. To see Rage Against the Machine play what was pretty much a dream set list for me. There's no new material from Rage, so we're not going to get any album promotion or, you know, new tracks from an album. It was purely all of the sort of back catalogue from Rage Against the Machine. They opened with, I think it was Testify. I'm going to really test my memory now. Testify, then Bomb Track, and then I think it was People of the Sun. And I'm going to say it was People of the Sun because they had to stop. I wasn't too close down the front. I wasn't too close to the barrier at the front. But I've seen footage and heard plenty of people tell me that it was just pretty unbearable down the front. There was huge surges from the crowd and a lot of people passing out. A lot of people very squashed. They were getting injured ankles and legs from people stomping, and not on purpose, just from the surge. And then the barrier broke down the front, which has happened before at gigs. It's obviously never a nice thing if suddenly a load of people are spilling out and getting crushed. But I don't know whether the band spotted or if it was security. But they stopped People of the Sun. And I remember very clearly Zach was asking people to move back, take steps back, just for people's protection. There was a lot of people there very hyped up for Rage Against the Machine, and rightly so. You know, a lot of people had waited a long time to be able to see this band live again. We'd had a pretty heavy afternoon, what with Five Finger, Lamb of God, Megadeth, Deftones, people amped up, people psyched up for Rage Against the Machine. And, you know, it just, I have no problem with people getting, you know, buzzing away for sets and whatever, but it's looking after people, and I think, you know, it just got a bit too much. Thankfully, the band did the right thing, and we went back into People of the Sun from the top, and it was just perfection from there. As I say, it was pretty much a dream set list for me. Bullet in the Head, Bulls on Parade, Guerrilla Radio, Killing in the Name of, Sleep Now in the Fire. Everything I could want, they played. We got the Clash cover with White Riot as well. Just amazing, amazing set. There was really no production to it as well. We just had the backdrop with the red sort of Rage star, and that was it. It was just 4 guys playing on stage. Let the music and the message that Rage Against the Machine purvey speak through. Obviously a very politically fueled band. Political movement within their songs and their lyrics. So there's a message within the music, but yeah, no production. We didn't have any pyro. We had no fancy stage show like Kiss or Rammstein, any bands like that, even AC/DC the night before. Just 4 guys playing, but it was so good, so good. Another solid headliner. We were so lucky with our main stage headliners that year. I was, at least. Appreciate not everybody will be a fan of these 3 bands, but I am, and I enjoyed it, let me tell you. Taking a look at the other stages, so on the Saturday on the second stage, we had Rise to Remain, which was Austin Dickinson's band, of course, who is Bruce Dickinson's son from Iron Maiden, opening up. Rolo Tomasi were on there. Cancer Bats, Volbeat, who are huge in Europe. Never quite been as big in the UK. I've seen them a couple of times at Download. I've seen them do support slots for bands over here. But they've always sort of been an academy-sized band. Sort of those academy-sized 3,000 venue type bands in the UK. But if you look at the European festival circuit, they're out headlining quite a few of the festivals. Rock am Ring's lineup for 22 has just been announced, and Volbeat are one of the headliners on that. And they've just never quite matched it in the UK. I always find it interesting seeing bands that are sort of big in the UK but not big in the States or Europe, but massive in the States and not so big in the UK or massive in whatever, you know. I find that really interesting, and Volbeat's one of those bands, definitely. We had the Blackout, and then we had him, and then 30 Seconds to Mars. Now, I voiced my opinion on 30 Seconds to Mars before. I won't go into it all too much again. I think it's a very egotistical band. I think Jared Leto is a very good actor, and I think he acts playing a rock star a little bit. You know, I always stress I don't want to slag off bands. I don't want to slag off musicians, artists, because everyone has a right to enjoy what they like, and I'm not going to tell you you shouldn't like a certain band, but I just find it a little bit too egotistical. I think Jared Leto is not being a rock star. I think he's purveying a rock star with his actor background a little bit, but I didn't see him. I can't comment on this set. I've only seen him a couple of times on main stage, and I didn't enjoy either. That's enough said on those guys. Third stage, a band that's right in the middle of the day that really stands out is Hailstorm. I think this was Hailstorm's first time playing. I know they came back a year later or a couple of years later and did a low slot on second, but they've worked their way up. They're doing good slots on main. The last Download in 2019, they were headlining second stage. You know, they are still a band on the up. Lizzie Hale seems to be guesting on every other band's material at the minute, which isn't a bad thing with her voice, you know, and her presence. She's a great front woman. Such an incredible, powerful voice. But it was interesting to see them there. I didn't realise they actually did a third stage slot. So that's news to me, looking at this lineup. Nothing massively stands out. Michael Monroe headlined. I've seen Michael Monroe a couple of times. I saw him opening up for Motorhead. Never a fan. Not really my thing. He was Hanoi Rocks, I'm going to say. I might be wrong. I'm going to take a stab that I think he was with Hanoi Rocks. Maybe wrong, maybe right. I don't know. Fourth stage, again, nothing too much that stands out other than our headliners, which is Breed 77. We'd seen Breed 77 open up main stage a couple of times. There they were doing a fourth stage headliner slot. And then again, we had the Blackout actually on the Jaeger acoustic stage opening up. So that would have been their second, their first set of the weekend. Their second set would have been later in the day on that second stage. So I imagine for the Blackout fans, that would have been a quite cool thing to see them on that little acoustic stage playing. And then we had Panic Cell, who went on to play the next day as well, headlining fourth stage. Reckless Love headlining that one. So that was our second stage. Let's move on to... sorry, that was our second day, not our second stage. Let's move on to our third day. Sunday the 13th. The day the rain came back to Donington. As far as memory serves, this was our first experience of rain at Download, for me at least. And it didn't half rain, but I tell you what, it didn't ruin the day. You made the most of it, you got on with it, you cracked on, you opened the beer up, you had a beer. It was all good. I didn't mind the rain too much. I'm glad it came on the Sunday. You know, it wasn't that fun when it was raining hard on the Friday at later years and the just turn into a swamp, you know, mud up to your knees and everything. But I didn't mind it too much on the Sunday, on that last day. I headed over to the second stage on the Sunday morning. I caught White Wizard. I unfortunately can't tell you anything about White Wizard. I have no memory. I know I went and saw them, but I don't remember anything about them. The band I wanted to see were on after, and that was 3 Inches of Blood, who were a Canadian band, who had some pretty decent tracks. Deadly Sinners was one of them. I've seen them previously over in Germany, and the Germans lapped it up. You know, sort of band in Europe that they adore. But they were good. The band I wanted to see, they were up against some kind of classic rock bands. Domin, is that correct how you say that? And then FM. No interest in either of those really, unfortunately. So wanted to go and get a bit of metal into me. And yeah, 3 Inches of Blood, I enjoyed them. It was good fun. Singing about orcs and various things like that, as you do. Coming across back, a band that I've raved about. If you've seen my vinyl appreciation videos, you know that I've covered a record by this band, and that is Saxon. Now, Saxon had a extended set list this morning because they were playing Wheels of Steel in full. From, I say start to finish, they moved Wheels of Steel, if you know that track list in order. They moved Wheels of Steel and put it to the end, not the end of a set, but the end of the Wheels of Steel album. But we did get each track, which was very cool. As I say, I kind of wish we got that with Megadeth the day before, with Rust in Peace. But we didn't. But we did get it with Saxon Wheels of Steel, which is very cool to see. And then they ended Wheels of Steel with the album with Wheels of Steel. And then we went into, I think, Princess of the Night, Denim and Leather. And I'm going to say, and the band's played on, just because it was Donington. And that track is about Monsters of Rock and about Donington. Yeah, I love Saxon. You only have to see that Denim and Leather video that I did for the vinyl appreciation to know how much I love Saxon. We saw them on the third stage in 2008 prior to Testament. And yeah, I love Saxon so much. They are such, I think, an underrated band. I know they were a big inspiration for a lot of sort of up-and-coming bands at the time. You look at bands like Metallica, you know, Lars was a big Saxon fan. But I think they were still kind of underappreciated. I don't think they got as big as they should have. It's one of those bands that, you know, they did get big. They've done some big shows and whatnot, but I just think they should have gone a little bit bigger. But they still produce incredible albums, still get those albums when they come out. I really do love Saxon, and it was a great joy to see Wheels of Steel in its entirety. Following on from Saxon was Cinderella, who I didn't watch. I have no interest, unfortunately, in seeing Cinderella. We went and got food and fueled ourselves up on beer. And then someone who I definitely did want to be seeing, and that was Slash, back with Miles Kennedy and the rest of the band. Coming and doing his solo set. Now, half of it was solo material from his first solo record, which obviously Miles was covering vocals on all those other tracks. And then we got the Guns N' Roses tracks. We got Sliver, I think, by Velvet Revolver. He brought Lemmy out to do Dr. Alibi, which obviously is on that first Slash solo record. So that was pretty cool, bringing someone out to jam. I spoke earlier about that. You know, you look at the lineup and you see a couple of acts together and you think, oh, he's done something with them. Maybe they'll bring them out, do something together, whatever. And we got it. We got Dr. Alibi with Lemmy, which was very cool. Slash returned the favour later, which I'll come on to. But yeah, we got the stuff that they were doing a lot of at the time, solo-wise, which was Rocket Queen Night Train, obviously they did Sweet Child of Mine, Paradise City, all the stuff you'd expect. I think they did Sliver. I know they did do Sliver on some of their shows. I think they did Sliver on this one. And then, yeah, the rest of the set was made up of the solo material from Slash's first record, which I really like that record. I think it's one of the stronger ones that he's put out, in all honesty. I love Miles Kennedy, as I've expressed before, with Alter Bridge. And I love that he's fronting the band. And I like the albums with Miles doing vocals throughout. But I do like that first record. There's some interesting guest vocalists on there. You got the likes of Lemmy and Ozzy, M Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold. You had Fergie from Black Eyed Peas, of all people, doing some stuff. So yeah, really diverse record. And it was nice to hear some of that solo material from it. This is where the rain started happening as well during Slash. Following Slash was Billy Idol. I've never been into Billy Idol. I know the famous tracks like White Wedding and that, but never got into Billy Idol, really. The rain was pouring. I remember they had, a bit like AC/DC had, they had the walkway which came out, which was for Aerosmith. And I remember Billy Idol spent most of the set down at the front of that walkway in the rain, which I think's always cool to see. You know, some artists, I think of someone like Justin Bieber. Who would have thought I would have been talking about Justin Bieber on this episode of Download? But here I am. Someone like Justin Bieber, I could imagine that a little bit of rain or a little bit of water and he would probably walk off and cancel the show. But it was pretty cool to see Billy Idol. He felt at one with us, you know, which I like. You know, there was no segregation between him and fans. He was one of us out in the pouring rain, drenched through the bone, just like we all were, but having a good time. And it made the set a bit more memorable. Not saying that his music or his material was weak, but, you know, memories like that stick with you. Watching Billy Idol, drenched to the bone, having a brilliant time, thinking, well, you know, it's not all that bad. If he can do it, we can have a good time too. And we did. It was fun. After Billy Idol was Motorhead. Now, the rain had really hit by this point. It was raining hard during Billy Idol, but it was very, very heavy and very wet underfoot now for Motorhead. And I remember a lot of people disappeared. It was very easy to walk through the crowd and straight down to the front almost for Motorhead. Obviously, the crowd filled up a bit as they came on and played, but I think a lot of people disappeared back to tents or went for a bit of shelter maybe to get out of this rain and get out of the mud. Not that you can really escape the mud, but or the rain, but I think a lot of people did that. And we had our big ponchos on that you can get. And I remember having a beer in hand. I've got a picture of it somewhere, which I love that picture. And Motorhead played, and I remember I probably annoyed everybody around me. I was stomping away, splashing people with puddles of mud because I was just rocking out. Because it's Motorhead, and I love Motorhead, and the rain isn't going to stop me loving Motorhead and Lemmy. Air guitaring, I probably had too much beer in me maybe, but air guitaring away, my poncho flapping all over the place, and we're just having a great time, you know. Slash came out, and Slash did Just 'Cause You Got the Power, which is cool. That song goes on and on and on, which, you know, good if you're a fan of hearing Slash solo away, because it's a good song to be soloing over the top of. I don't think they were on a specific album cycle at that point, were Motorhead. So it was, again, I always say, a typical, well, no, not even a typical festival set. It was a typical Motorhead set. You know, you go and see a Motorhead show, you might get a couple of new tracks thrown in from whichever album cycle they're on. But on the whole, you're just going to get your classics. It's such a massive back catalogue from Motorhead that you're going to, you know, pick up. They're not going to play everything. It'll be like a 10-hour set, which I think Lemmy would have managed, but I'm sure we probably would have pushed all 10 hours and loved every second of it. But, you know, they're going to pick out the stuff that people want to hear. Lemmy always said, give the people what they want. You know, we're paying the money, so give the fans what they want to hear. And Motorhead always did that. And it didn't matter. It was pouring, it with rain and mud and whatever. it was great. I had such a good time. Following Motorhead on the main stage was Stone Temple Pilots, a band I never hugely got into. I caught a little bit of them a couple years back. 2019, I think it was. They were sub-headliner to the second stage headliner. And I caught a bit of them, and I quite enjoyed it, to be honest, but I never really got into the band. So we went across to the second stage to catch Airborne, who were in a sub-headliner slot on the second stage. Now, again, it was raining. There was thunder and lightning in the distance. Airborne were on the second record, so we got a bit of a split between the first two records. They didn't really favour the new record. We were still getting a lot from that first. But during Girls in Black, the singer, Joel O'Keefe, went climbing, as he sometimes does, and he climbed the entire rig up to the very, very top of the second stage. And inevitably, he soloed for a bit, and then the sound got cut because he was up there on a massive, huge metal structure with all the electronics around him, with thunder and lightning in the distance. This is the sort of rock and roll moment I want to see. No, I don't want to see him injured. No, I don't want to see him struck by lightning. That would be horrific. But I want to see a bit of rock and rollness. I want to see a little bit of danger and a little bit of, you know, living on the edge a little bit. So to see him up there soloing, hanging on by his legs on this massive metal structure, like 30, 40 feet in the air, in the rain with thunder and lightning, that's rock and roll. Come on, let's see more stuff like that. It was so cool. The sound got cut. They still could play. He had to come down. They carried on the set, thankfully, because that was kind of in the middle of a set, halfway through. So we got a whole lot of Airborne after. And, you know, it probably suited a lot of weekend ticketers and the campers, because we'd had AC/DC play on the Friday, and here were modern AC/DC playing on the Sunday. So big crowd for those guys. You know, all the AC/DC fans probably loved it. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they just found them too much of a copycat and didn't dig it. But I imagine a lot of AC/DC fans would probably go and hop on and enjoy a bit of Airborne and get a second dose of AC/DC as such. From Airborne, jump back over to Maine to see Aerosmith close out the festival. Aerosmith doing their first download headliner slot. I think they've been back twice, I'm going to say, after as well. They opened with Love in an Elevator. It wasn't my favourite Aerosmith set list, if I'm honest. We got a lot of the tracks that you would expect. We got Back in the Saddle, got Mama Kin, Sweet Emotion, Walk This Way, Don't Want to Miss a Thing. All the tracks you kind of expect, but they had some... I'd rather have heard certain tracks over other ones that we got, if that makes sense. But still very good. I really like Aerosmith. I've done a couple of vinyl appreciation videos on Permanent Vacation and Pump. I would have really liked to have heard the first couple of tracks off Pump with Young Lust and FINE. I would have preferred those over some of the tracks that we did get. I think there was better set lists by Aerosmith in later years. But still good. And my first dosage of Aerosmith live, which, you know, what a great way for me rounding off the festival. As I say, solid headliners that year for me. There was nothing weak about them. Again, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I appreciate that. But for me, couldn't have asked for better headliners that year. So good. 3 bands I'd never seen live. AC/DC, Rage, Aerosmith. I was happy. I was a happy Matt that weekend. But yeah, it was, as I say, it wasn't the worst set list they could play. It's just, I think there were better ones that I've seen since. It was a very mix across the albums. We didn't really focus on any specific album. It was quite across the board on the albums as well. So if you've got quite a bit of a back catalogue of Aerosmith, you probably would have been happy with a couple of the deep cuts that they pulled out. And again, in the pouring rain, and that didn't matter. Steven Tyler was out on the walkway in the rain, Joe Perry. It didn't matter, and I think that's great to see because they're out in the rain, we're out in the rain, we're one, we're all getting wet, we're all cold. So just, it's rock and roll. It's like for a few hours, and then you can go home and shower and warm up and dry off and everything. It doesn't matter for a few hours. It's live music. What we would all give right now to be in the middle of a pouring rain watching Aerosmith or Motorhead or Slash or Billy Idol, whoever, Airborne up the top of the stage. I think we'd all give for that right now. So don't moan, just enjoy it. Just make the most of the situation and enjoy it. Grab a beer, rock out, air guitar, get your poncho on. It don't matter, just have fun. That's what I say. Across the other stages then, it was quite a strong day actually on the second stage. A few bands I would have probably enjoyed going to see. Most of them, to be honest, in that top 3/4. So we had Napalm Death. We had the Damned Things, which was kind of a super group project. We had the singer from Every Time I Die, who I love that band so much. We'll come on to them in later episodes. Scott Ian from Anthrax. I forget who else was in the band. But a bit of a super group. The Dillinger Escape Plan, Porcupine Tree, Steel Panther, Airborne, and Stone Sour headlining. We're getting Corey Taylor back once again. Back for the first time after that hugely conquering headline set by Slipknot the year prior. So a pretty strong day for me. There's a lot there I would have liked to have seen. I think if that lineup was on now, if you had Main and second on now, I definitely would have skipped Billy Idol and gone and caught whoever was on at the same time as Billy Idol. So third stage, nothing massively that stands out. Suicidal Tendencies were headlining, which is a really cool crossover thrash band I yet to see live but would like to go see live at some point, and check those guys out. They were on a Slipknot support a few years ago on an arena tour. It's not a tour that I went to, but it was them and I think Sixth, which was quite a cool lineup, and then Slipknot, all the S's. And then again, fourth stage, nothing really that took my fancy. The acoustic stage, we had Taking Dawn opening up, who were obviously opening up the day before on Main. Ricky Warwick, we had some DJs, and then Ginger Wildheart from Wildheart's back doing a solo set on that acoustic stage. And that wrapped up Download 2010. We're whipping through these, I tell you. As I say, it was a great weekend. Really, really good, solid weekend. I love the headliners. I thought the Sunday was relatively strong. I think Saturday was very strong on Main stage. I think the second stage on the Sunday was very strong. I liked who we saw on the Friday as well, even though there were lesser bands. Or less bands, not lesser bands. And altogether, it was a good Download, although we did get the rain, and that kind of continued on for a few downloads after that with the rain, unfortunately. But, you know, we're outdoors. It's going to happen eventually. We were very lucky with the first few downloads being so hot and sunny and burning to a crisp. It was inevitable we were going to get rain at some point. But as I say, it's only rain. It doesn't matter. Let's enjoy the bands. Let's enjoy the experience and the live music. It will make it more memorable. Whether it's for the right or wrong reasons, it will make it more memorable. But that was Download 2010. Hard to believe it was over 10 years ago already. Thank you once again, everyone, for watching. If you like what you see, go and hit subscribe for me. Do me a favour, go and hit that subscribe for me. Build the channel up more. Share it with your friends. Even if it's the vinyl stuff, go and share it out to anybody that likes vinyl. Let's build this channel up. Don't forget there's Instagram and Twitter as well. If you're on either of those, go and give the page a follow at Vinylhead UK for both of them. They're there to support the YouTube channel. Hit the bell for all notifications. Smash that like button, all the usual stuff. And don't forget, I'll be back same time next week for 2011. We'll talk about rain a lot in 2011, no doubt. But until then, look after yourselves, and I'll catch you soon.